One begins deep in the mountains where winter lingers longer than it should and silence carries weight. The mountain man has lived alone for years, moving through forest and stone with practiced ease, trusting no one but the land itself. His cabin sits far from trails, hidden by trees and steep climbs, and he believes nothing reaches it without his knowing. Yet one evening as snow begins to fall, he notices signs that do not belong. Bootprint, smaller, lighter, careful, leading toward the cabin. Smoke rises faintly from the chimney. Though he has been gone all day, his hand moves to his knife as instinct sharpens. When he approaches, quietly circling wide, he sees a figure through the window, a woman bent low near the hearth. Her movements are gentle, unhurried, not fearful. Inside, his parents sit wrapped in blankets thinner than they should be, his father frail, his mother trembling as the cold presses in. The woman feeds them spoon by spoon, murmuring softly, breaking bread she clearly spared from herself. She adjusts the fire, fixes a loose wrap, and cleans blood from an old wound on his father's arm. Her face shows exhaustion but also resolve. The mountain man watches, stunned, realizing his parents are alive because of her presence. He has avoided them, believing distance was protection, believing solitude was mercy. Yet here is a widow, a stranger, risking the mountains to care for two elders she owes nothing. The cabin smells of broth and pine instead of decay. His parents' eyes shine with relief, trust, and quiet gratitude toward the woman who came when he did not. Part 1 is the moment the world he built cracks, not with violence but with kindness. The danger is not the stranger but the truth that compassion traveled farther than he did. It establishes the contrast between survival and humanity, between isolation and responsibility. The mountain man does not step inside, yet he remains in the cold, wrestling with something heavier than fear, realizing that someone else has carried the burden he abandoned, and that discovery will demand more of him than any winter ever has. Continues as the mountain man does not reveal himself but instead follows the widow when she leaves the cabin. At first light, moving through the trees with the quiet skill the mountains taught him, he keeps his distance, watching as she struggles down narrow paths carrying an empty pot and worn sack. Her steps slow from hunger rather than weakness. He sees her stop at a frozen stream, breaking ice with bare hands, wincing as blood colors the water. She gathers roots, scraps, and whatever the land offers, never taking more than necessary, never once looking back toward the cabin as if she expects nothing in return. The mountain man learns more in a single morning than years of solitude ever taught him. The widow lives in a crude shelter farther down the slope, barely standing, patched with bark and cloth. Inside there is little food and less warmth. A single photograph rests near the fire, a man in rough clothes smiling beside her. She speaks to it softly, explaining that the old couple needs her today, that she will eat later if there is time. He understands then that her husband died in these same mountains, lost to a storm or fallen, that grief has not hardened her but sharpened her sense of duty. When she returns to the cabin, she brings what little she found, giving it all to his parents without hesitation. His mother squeezes her hand with tears and calls her daughter. The mountain man feels something twist inside him, shame, anger, gratitude, and confusion colliding. He had believed the world beyond his solitude was cruel and demanding, yet here is proof that kindness survives even where life is hardest. He watches his father smile faintly, strength borrowed from care, not blood. Part 2 reveals the truth not through words but through witness, showing the widow not as a threat but as the quiet backbone holding fragile lives together. The mountain man remains hidden, but his certainty begins to crumble. He understands that the mountains did not only take from her, they shaped her into the someone who gives despite loss, and that realization begins to change the path he will choose next. Begins as the mountain man finally steps from the shadows, his boots cracking softly against frozen earth and his presence startling the widow, who spins around, her hands frozen in midair. Yet her gaze does not betray fear, only resolve. She does not scream or retreat but stands firm, admitting softly that she could not abandon his parents, even knowing the danger, even knowing that someone might judge her choices. She tells him about the nights she carried water through ice and snow, the mornings she baked bread over coals, and how every meal and every word of comfort was given freely without expectation. His parents look up at him, their expressions a mix of relief and quiet pride, and in that moment the mountain man feels a swell of emotion he has not allowed himself for years. Gratitude mingled with shame for having doubted her and for having lived so long without reaching beyond himself. The widow's story unfolds as a testament to endurance and heartache. She speaks of her husband lost to the mountain winds of a winter past, and how survival alone is hollow if others suffer while you stand safe. He listens quietly, understanding that courage is measured not by solitude or strength but by compassion extended even when there is nothing left to give. The mountain man realizes that his parents have thrived because of her intervention, and that her courage mirrors the very values he thought he embodied. He struggles with words, yet the widow does not require them. Her honesty and care filling the space that his silence could not. She does not seek reward or recognition, and the truth strikes him harder than any blade or storm ever could. Part 3 is the moment of confrontation, not in anger but in revelation, where fear dissolves into understanding and judgment turns to respect. The mountain man recognizes that to truly protect and honor those he loves, he must act not with isolation or suspicion but with partnership and trust. The widow has given all she could, and in doing so has changed the dynamic of their lives forever. He understands now that the next step is not punishment or reward but a conscious choice to embrace responsibility and to allow compassion to guide action where pride once ruled. Unfolds as the mountain man makes the decision to act rather than remain a silent observer. He begins with small gestures, first clearing snowed paths to the cabin, reinforcing the roof and repairing the hearth, ensuring warmth and shelter for his parents and the widow who has already given so much. He brings his knowledge of the mountains to bear, teaching the widow how to gather food efficiently, how to store water safely, and how to read the weather so that each storm is anticipated rather than feared. Together they work side by side, the mountain man carrying heavy logs while she tends the fire and prepares meals. Their cooperation slowly transforms the cabin from a place of fragile survival into one of quiet stability and safety. He realizes that protection is more than defense against the wild. It is the creation of a home that can endure hunger, cold, and exhaustion. The widow watches him with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. Her own strength respected yet supported. He learns to see the land not just as a solitary provider but as a shared resource whose demands are less harsh. When met together at night, they sit near the fire, his parents resting with confidence that their children are safe. The mountain man and the widow speaking quietly, sharing memories, laughter, and plans for the seasons ahead. He feels a sense of purpose growing that he had never known in solitude, the act of giving and protecting reshaping him as surely as the mountains shaped the land. Part 4 is the choice realized in action, where isolation is abandoned for partnership and the harshness of the wilderness is softened by mutual support. The mountain man's decision to step forward not only secures the widow's immediate survival but also forges bonds that will carry all of them through winters to come. It marks a turning point where courage is expressed through care and lives begin to change, not through grand gestures but through steady, consistent acts of devotion and collaboration. Unfolds as winter begins to loosen its grip and the mountain man and the widow settle into a rhythm shaped by survival and shared care. The cabin, once fragile and isolated, now feels alive with warmth and the quiet bustle of daily tasks completed together. The widow's health improves, her cheeks flushed with strength and energy she had long withheld for others, and her eyes carry a light that had dimmed with grief. The mountain man watches her with a new awareness, noticing the small gestures of resilience, the way she moves through the snow with confidence, how she anticipates needs before they arise. He begins to share stories of his own past, tales of solitude and hardship, and she listens, not with judgment but with empathy and understanding. The parents flourish under this combined care, their strength returning, their laughter softly echoing through the cabin, and the mountain man feels a profound sense of fulfillment, a purpose deeper than survival alone. Part 5 is the culmination where lives are irrevocably changed through mutual support and quiet devotion. The mountain man steps fully into the role of protector, not out of duty or pride, but out of genuine care and love, and the widow gains not only safety but a sense of belonging and hope for the future. Their bond grows into partnership and respect, the hardships of the mountains shared rather than endured alone, and the cabin becomes a sanctuary rather than a refuge. The story closes with the snow melting, the sunlight stretching across the mountains, and the realization that compassion and courage together can transform lives forever, leaving the mountain man and the widow not just surviving but living fully, their paths intertwined by choice, trust, and the quiet heroism of everyday acts.